Good morning. Welcome to Live with Liz, where we talk about legal marketing and business development, mostly for international firms, mostly for business firms, but a lot of the things we talk about kind of go across the board. And today we are talking about law firm rebranding. And we're visiting this. We've talked about this before. It's something that crops up from time to time as we get to know more firms and we see what's happening in the marketplace. But it seems to be something that is elusive for law firms, and we end up seeing a lot of the different brands, maybe not different is not the best word, repeating a lot of logos, repeating themselves, a lot of colors repeating themselves. And it's difficult to find that differentiation in law firm marketing and in law firms in general. And we want to take advantage of our branding, our visual identity, to be able to connect with our audience, to be able to transmit quickly, clearly who we are, to find the ethos in our services and our team, and to be able to make sure that we're making those bridges with the people who matter, who are going to hire us, making us recognizable in the market, and just making sure that it represents who we are and that we don't lose this moment. Now, law firms have some challenges that other industries may not have. So this is something that crops up, especially, hey, good morning, Leah. Thanks for always being here. My one true fan and also on my team. Does it count? Okay. So it's something that is worthwhile talking about from time to time, because it's not something that you can just go to any industry, to any marketer and they can just come to your law firm and understand, hey, Mira, nice to see you here. And they can just automatically understand who you are and what your legal services are all about. So it's really important when you're reaching out to an agency to get help with this, whether it's a new name, a new logo, new colors, whether it's your brand positioning. And maybe if you don't quite understand what we're talking about, when we say brand positioning, this is really your content. This is your communication, your messaging, what you're saying to your audience in terms of your mission and your vision and values. When you're transmitting who you are, that's your position. And when we talk about shifting a position, that's not so easy with just any marketer who's not familiar with the law firm industry or the services that you offer within the law firm industry. So there are a lot of variations between firms, between jurisdictions, and from audience to audience. So as you grow in your practice, as your firm grows, as competition faces, hey, dear, so nice to see you. As you come into these new challenges, as your firm progresses, you will find that from time to time, it's worthwhile to revisit who your audience really is and what that messaging should actually be. You might be doing a competitive analysis. You might be changing location. You might be changing, this is something I got from HubSpot. You might be changing philosophy. And what does that mean? Changing philosophy. Oh, maybe you had a midlife crisis, or is it an epiphany? Or perhaps you just have a change in leadership, or there's something new coming along. Now, very important for law firms that a lot of marketing agencies, I was talking about before, don't necessarily know is that there could be limitations on what you can name yourself, or on what your logos can be, or on advertising in general. And your marketing and branding can be caught up in that. So it's incredibly important for a law firm, a professional organization, to understand what limitations might be in place, to check with the bar associations, to check with regulators, to make sure that you're in line with what you're allowed to do. And that's why I think it's really important. A lot of firms have to use the name of the professionals who are part of the organization or the managing members. They don't have necessarily a choice in going with something more creative, but there are ways to position that name to have success. And we see that with many of the most successful, well-branded law firms out there. They're still using the name. They're still using maybe multiple names, or maybe the initials of their practitioners. Maybe that's not by choice, maybe it is. And there are times when, wow, you have a great name, we should really go with that. Or perhaps there's another reason to rebrand, like you have a crisis or something and your name is all of a sudden associated with something that you would rather it not be associated with. That's another reason to make one of these changes. So a lot of things can happen in the market with regulations. And as some of these regulations ease and make it make it less challenging for you to identify yourself in a more unique way, can take advantage of those moments and refresh who you are. Change up your logo, change up your name, change up your colors. But don't just do it, oh, I like that color. Oh, I like this logo. Let's be thoughtful about it and go through the process. Let's analyze who you are, do the competitive analysis, and make sure that we're getting to the heart of what it is you offer. Speaking of what you offer, that's another reason to make a change. If you're changing your services, redefining the services you already offer, or adding or taking away from them, that might be another moment that you want to consider rebranding. Now, when you're going in, you're coming up with your new name, you're coming up with your new logo, and you're getting into the brand positioning, getting to the heart of who you are, you don't have to necessarily go all in. So you've got that total rebrand where you do it, and then you've got the partial rebrand where maybe you just do a bit or a piece here and there. You don't have to do everything all at once. There are reasons for that too. So some of the firms that we've worked with around the world, we tend to see some of the same things when you look at law firms and they start to realize, oh, my audience is expanding, my client base is expanding or changing. I'm targeting different people. Every once in a while you run into somebody and say, that law firm, is it the one from Italy or is it the one from Argentina because they have the same name? Or, wow, that law firm, there's that exact same name. I saw it in India and I saw one somewhere else and I can't identify. And they say, oh no, we need to change our name. And maybe that's all they end up doing in the beginning, where they say, wait a second, it's just a name change, but it's an important change. And it's the foundation of the further total transformation of your visual identity could start with just a name. It's not just a name. So it's really important to assess these things and think about them holistically, especially if you're international. Think about what the name might mean in different jurisdictions. Think about whether or not there's a presence of this name that already exists. You would think that for the IP firms we work with, this would be kind of second nature. It would be something that is just automatic for them to find something that is protectable and creative or unique or that differentiates all of the things that they have concerns about with their clients and their trademark work would apply to them too. It does. So to that end, for law firms, especially in IP, but all across the board, maybe it's not just a name. And when I'm talking about those names that are all very similar, I'm talking about the ones that have Lex in them. You probably heard me say this before. If you have a name that references something very similar across the board, you're going to find other firms that have that too. And one of the biggest challenges for international firms anywhere is to tie the firm and your identity to your jurisdiction so that the people who are hiring you automatically make the connection. So I'm not necessarily saying that you should use your flag colors or that you should use something that's, totally cliche for your culture, but you want to somehow, even in an abstract way, make that connection. And you can do it not just with your visual, but also with your positioning and your messaging, maybe with your tagline, we're the best law firm in, and that's a terrible tagline. Don't ever say we're the best. I know you wouldn't anyway, but this is just an example of tying in your jurisdiction to that brand identity and to your branding. That is incredibly important. And those cliche images that we're talking about all the time. I mean, how many times are we going to see Lady Justice or the scales of justice or a gavel to represent, a law firm? It's not really unique. It's something that makes you look like a lot of other firms out there, and it's difficult to set that aside. In some ways, that's where you can understand how a name or initials could have a much bigger impact, and they could become more identifiable because you've got something that automatically is different and resonates. And if you are though other people may have the same name, if you do it in a certain way and it's something that represents you as maybe a leader in your particular service sectors and in your industries and your practice areas, then you can have success with it anyway, much more so than if you stick with the old cliches of a gavel or Lady Justice or the scales of liberty. So if you've got Lex in your name and you've got Lady Justice in your logo, we need to have a talk. schedule some time with us and we'll sit down. Free consultation. We'll help you out there. And then there are other things that you can consider in doing a rebranding. Um, I like some of the ones that say, consider your ego. HubSpot said that too. Consider your ego, or um, just taking a look inside and seeing what things need to happen in order for you to be successful with your new brand. And I can't stress enough how important it is to have that competitive analysis in place. And I think we see this also with our experience with intellectual property is something that really sticks out for us. And I'll go back to those cliches for a minute, because with IP, you see light bulbs and you see globes. And anyone who practices IP or whose firms touch upon IP probably know exactly what I'm talking about, but maybe you haven't thought about it that way before. Light bulbs and globes. This is what you see in so many different firms that are offering intellectual property services. And it's okay to have those. It really is, even though they are repetitive and may not be distinct. But if you're going to use one of those symbols to represent the services that you're offering, make sure that you've changed up the visual on your logo enough so that it either creates that connection we were talking about before, or that it's done in a modern and unique way that is fresh and not cliche. So something that's identifiable. You don't want the same light bulb as everyone else. You don't want the same stock globe as everyone else. And a lot of those tend to be indistinguishable from each other. So you're flipping through an IP magazine at a conference and you've got all of these advertisements and half of them are either globes or light bulbs. And then, nobody sticks out that way unless they've got something that's really caught you in a different way, a different hook, a different tagline, a different connection, different colors, different offerings that make you pause and say, oh, I'm looking for a firm in that jurisdiction. Even if you don't say it in your brain exactly like that, it's still something that creates that connection that maybe you don't have to change 100%. So if you're stuck, you like your globe and you like your light bulb, it doesn't mean you have to give them up entirely. Maybe you transition over time. And that's the same if you have goodwill in your logo or your branding. If you've already established yourself and believe you have that connection, but still are struggling because you want that refresh and you need to have a more modern appearance, you don't have to completely change everything about it. Maybe you maintain the same color scheme. Maybe some of your positioning remains if you're already successful and you just freshen up that logo a little bit. Sometimes a subtle change in font and messaging, keeping your logo, are enough to give your brand a fresher edge and a new look that makes you come alive with maybe a new audience or reconnect with the audience that you have, to show that you've still got it. You're still in that right space. So law firm branding is not the same as rebranding in any market. You have extra considerations, but in a lot of ways, you do go through a lot of the business processes that other companies and other industries go through. You just have to take the time to actually do it. So what does that look like? Figure out, what is the impetus for making this change? Why are you coming out and saying, you know what, we need to rebrand, need a new logo? Figure that out. And then make sure you're doing those assessments. Check out the competition, see what's fresh in the industry, reconsider that connection and take advantage of it. And then, as a part of your positioning, you don't just do it and do nothing. This is a great time when you rebrand to communicate everywhere with everyone, to make that reintroduction, to say, hey, audience, have you seen our new website? Have you seen our new logo? This is an excellent time to take out some advertising in some of the main publications, to showcase who you are, to showcase your new brand, and to make sure that not only have you re-identified yourself, but that you've reconnected with your audience in a bigger way, so that they are aware that you've done this, so that they're not confused when they go look for you and they say, wait a second, is that you? Because that's a different logo. You want to shout it loudly, sponsor some things, the right things, advertise in the right places, but it's time to make some noise and to get reacquainted. Maybe it's time for your leadership to have a new interview. Maybe it's time for you to do some banner advertising and take advantage of some digital presence that you might have. Some social media campaigns for sure go along with this. So you don't just do it and set it aside and say, oh, we're refreshed, that's it. No, you shout it to the world and let it be known that this is you. And if you have questions about how to do any of these things or about where to be, you know where to find us, solutions@firmforward.com. Thank you, as always, for joining us for these 15-minute live with Liz coffee break style chats. We love doing these, and we are going to keep going for as long as we have some people supporting us. And if you have questions or want to see something on Live with Liz, or just want to reach out and say hi, please do. And we'll see you next time on Live with Liz. Take care, everybody.